Hey there. So in this video, what we're going to be doing is going through fundamental sales skills and how we're going to go under the hood and show you how you can sharpen each one with some fundamental speaking skills.
The first one for the sales skills looking under the hood series here, we're going to dive in. The first one is going to be tone. Whenever you're trying to build rapport, you always want to watch your tone because the tone may come off as too aggressive. The tone may come off as too passive. You want to find a balance in the tone, and that can look in a few different ways. We always want to make sure it's a good tone, nice and even tone, and inviting tone as well. Then the second area is really going to be comfort. You want to make sure you're comfortable when building rapport. You can't be tense and, hey, how's your day going? Good. You don't want to bring that energy, right? You want to just be comfortable and say, hey, how's your day going? And just be comfortable and be open. Then the third one's going to be pace. You want to make sure you're not going too quick, and then you want to make sure you're not going too slow. That way they miss what you're trying to build. So you want to find the balance between the two of those in your pacing. So just to summarize, it's tone, comfort, and pace that will build the rapport skill.
The second is controlling the conversation. So when you're in sales, I tell you, you need to control the conversation from the very second that you start the call. And what that means is that you are setting the agenda and you're controlling the conversation where it goes. You're the one asking questions and leading the conversation with them versus the other way around. One of the big areas for fundamental communication here is structuring the call itself. So are you able to, in the very beginning, do you set why it's important? Do you set why you're both there? Do you go through the agenda in less than a minute? If you can go through all those things and hit those things, and also tell them what to expect, the ground rules of the call. So I'll be asking you a number of questions. If you have a pen and paper, that would be really helpful. Things like that, so that they know what to expect in the call and they know what to do. So that's one, is structuring. Another area is being able to refocus the conversation. So this one is something that salespeople often struggle with. If you notice that something is veering off into a different direction, the conversation is moving into price already, and you go, okay, I think it's a little bit early for price. So how do you do that in a way that is refocusing gently? So you might say, so it sounds like we're jumping ahead a little bit. I'm not 100% sure that I have all your needs and problems assessed. So can we step back for a moment? So that would be refocusing. Notice, of course, the things that we talk about with tone and pausing, pacing matters. You don't want to do that in a way that's aggressive either. So that's refocusing the conversation. The last area that's going to help you in controlling the conversation is to move away from being scripted and move towards being in the moment and conversational. So when you're scripted, if it goes off script and they're asking you a question, you ask them a question, and the conversation goes in a certain way, it can be jarring if you just look at your piece of paper in front of you and go, okay, next question. So, okay, can you please tell me about this? And it doesn't really make sense why you asked that question, because you're just going 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So that means being more conversational in how you speak, and also just how you would have a normal conversation with a friend. Of course, you're doing some things that's a little bit different, but here you're going to be more clear on just conversational, having some fluidity when you speak.
And the third area in sales is asking discovery questions. And there are 3 fundamental skills that you need to be able to do it effectively. The first one is framing the question. If you don't frame the question, then your questions are going to come across like an interrogation. Like, what's your name? How old are you? Where do you live? Right? Freaky. So what you want to do is always frame the question, especially if this is in the beginning of the call. Framing the question sounds like this. I want to ask you a question just to clarify about your problem so I can offer a good solution. I want to ask you a few questions about yourself, and then afterwards, I'll use that information to give you a recommendation. That's called framing the question. You give them a reason for asking the questions. Make sense? So that makes the questions more palatable. Second one is pausing. When you ask a question, you don't want to be like a machine gun. What's your name? What's your number? Where do you live? Like, you want to add a pause in between and give them space to think. And don't panic when you don't hear something quickly immediately back. So you ask, what brings you to us today? and you're quiet and you're listening. Give them space. Give them space. Don't rush in with the next question. And the third one is acknowledge receiving the answer. So, for example, you ask, what brings you to us today? And they go, blah, 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 blah. And then you don't acknowledge it and you go to the next question. So, what would you like us to do for you? Now, you just demonstrated that you don't care about the answer they gave you. So what you need to do is acknowledge. Either if you're doing a virtual meeting or in-person meeting, it's the nod and the or verbal. Yes, I hear you. This is, for example, they tell you, oh, I just struggle being concise in presentations. So you would say, that's totally normal. We get this all the time. Most of our customers are analytical people who work in the details. So sometimes they go too much into the details, too much into the weeds. Notice I acknowledged and reassured. And now I'm ready for the next question. So to summarize, you have to frame the question before you ask it. Second, give them time to answer by pausing. Third, acknowledge receiving the information. And if you do these three things, then your discovery questions will be super.
So those are three areas that you can really sharpen your existing sales skills and supercharge them by going under the hood and focusing in on the fundamentals of communication. If you're interested in more, check out our channel for more videos. Thank you.